Okay, so this is the actual look that we're after achieving, which is a beautiful black Piatto. And so the process for this, in this case, is if this was a wall in your home, it could be any color, any shade. We actually apply what's called an anchor primer, which we've tinted to a grey, which we are going to roll on, and then we're going to use a Bondo blade just to smooth it down to accept the first scratch coat, which we would do on this wall, which we've already done too. We'll apply. So that is the process. So we want to show you the priming of how you start.
And the reason that we use the anchor primer under this product is because it's got a little bit heavier binding capabilities to hold the heavier weight of the Piatto, or if the other product that we would use would be Mezzo. And if you want to use the lighter products, which is the Grassello, Milano, or Berlina, we would use the micro primer. But for this one, we're going to definitely use the anchor primer.
Okay, so now I'm about to apply the primer. And I've chosen for this demo to show how homeowners or unprofessional people could apply. And you can just roll it on or hit it with a Bondo blade. It works really well. For myself, normal application, I normally actually trowel it. But also if you're on big commercial projects or any kind of scale, you can also spray it. So that's there's 3 options, and this is the first one we're going to do. I'm paying attention to make sure that I have full coverage, so there's no holes or any of that when you actually apply. I'm not trying to roll too quick, just taking my time and making sure that that is 100% coverage. So that's that. So now we're going to use this Bondo blade, and this texture that you see here that the roller has left, we want to help eliminate that. And I always use a low angle just to trowel that down in that manner to smooth off the high parts. Just put that together. So we just a couple of little bits, get rid of those. Okay, so now that we've applied the primer, just a quick note is we actually used a 3/8 nap, so it's not too heavy, not a 1/2 inch. We usually use a 3/8, and this is the product that we used, an anchor primer by FirmoLux. So now we're going to apply the first scratch coat of black Piatto. So I use this little blade just so I can always get up into these little areas up in here very easily. So I also like to take the Bondo blade and just run it down, smoothing things off as I go. So we eliminating all these lines as we go along. Typically while we're applying this first scratch coat, because of the anchor primer, stays wet very long, so you've got plenty of time. So you're not under any pressure. So you can go along in an angle like that, whereas the next one will apply more of an angle. So you have a random look. And then here, we'll knock those down again with a low angle of the blade. Just to smooth out any lines. So I'm just taking down, just smoothing off a little bit. It's just, you don't really need to do this, but I like to do it just so it gives it a nice, consistent base coat for when we apply the next top coat. And if you notice, I always just load X amount on my trowel, never too much. I don't put too much on the hog, so everything is not too heavy and it's balanced. When I apply this, I'm applying it so the consistency is basically all consistent, very thin. So I put it on like that, but I come back with the angle of the trowel and I compress it into the material, into the wood. If you see that, we're just going for coverage. Because we have texture under there, I've brought that angle up a little more just to put a little more material into it rather than, do this. Just so I got a nice base. As you can see, you can flick those off with your trowel like that. If you do, then you make sure that you don't put that back in. Now, because this is black, this has been tinted with a natural tint. If you use a UTC, normally on whites or light colors, there's X amount of pigment that you use for that, and it makes the plaster a little more liquidy. But with a natural tint, it keeps the consistency of the plaster just right. So if we were tinting with a UTC, which is universal tinting colors, black, you'd use so much pigment that the product would be so liquidy, it's hard to use. You'd have to wait, a week, 2 weeks for it to thicken up to the right consistency. So we use a natural tint for dark colors. Point we should do is always cover as close as you can, because normally, sometimes, even myself, we don't go far enough, and there might be a gap when they put the switchblade back on, and you're thinking, oh God, why didn't I not cover that right away? Because it comes to touch up. So go as far as you can. We've allowed this to dry overnight. And the first part of our process is that we primed it with an anchor primer, and then we put a scratch coat of, which is what this is right here, of FirmoLux Piatto tinted black. So now we're about to apply the top coat, and so there's a few bumps. Always take off like this, side of your trowel. Off like that, and this again is the contemporary finish that we are going for. So take some out, put some on your hog, not too much so it's not too heavy. and I'm just using the angle of the trowel to create the same amount of material at a time as we can, fairly thin. Don't overload your trowel in this manner. There's just too much material. So you always take on just X amount, that you can move the trowel and compress the material. A little goes a long way. Go different angles. So as we trowel, we go back into the material and we keep it consistently smooth. So there's no big pieces like this. Just move in as you go. Pay attention to switch plates, lights, so you go far enough in so you don't have to come back and repair them. So now we move down into this part on the scaffold. Again, I'm going back and I'm just taking off some of these bumps that are there, just so that when we trowel the second coat, it just goes on a little bit smoother for us. And so again, back into the material. Not too much to explain really, you just keep troweling back into the material. You can move the angles of the trowel just so you get a
Sean, is it okay if I move this orange handle thing out of the way?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Just right in the shot.
Just hang it on the scaffold.
Yeah, it's fine somewhere. Just thank you. Keep going. Just right in the frame.
Okay, yeah. So the material is all consistently the same. As I go back in, if I see any trowel lines, I take those out. These little trowel lines, I make sure they're smooth. And I'm able to do that because I've consistently put the same amount of material on as I go along. So here is a trowel line here. So we go back and make sure that that is gone. So everything is smooth. Again, the plaster is at the same thickness as I put it on, so I'm able to just go back in and make it smooth. Whereas if you put it on too thick, it still kind of creates the same line and you're always fighting it. So again, I'm just knocking off some of these nibs that are here. This of course can be done on every step that you do, in the priming stage and so forth, or beforehand. So, move on down, next part. So the next part will be burnishing, which is compressing the material. And so at a certain point it's starting to dry, so we'll be able to come back in a few minutes here and just start compressing this material down into a beautiful contemporary look.